Hello, Night Nation. Trace Relko here. Greetings from Parker, Colorado, just outside of Denver. This is the Sons of UCF Live. Adam is here and filling in for UCF Mike. It's our man, Leo Rodriguez. Adam, Leo, hello.
How you guys doing?
Greetings, Trace. You look cold. Are you okay?
I am cold.
Oh,
It's in the
can't
it's in the
can't
40s
relate.
here, and my sister keeps her house about that temperature, so it's hoodie weather.
Can't relate. Sorry.
Good to see you again, Adam. We were off last week. It's good to be back in the sync of things. No UCF Mike today, though.
Yeah, Mike, otherwise engaged. Definitely glad to be back. I know I've mentioned this a few times, but just a quick note off the top. Just a big thanks to everybody out there. A tough week for me personally, but got a lot of nice notes and messages. And like I said on the podcast, I could definitely feel the arms of Night Nation kind of wrapping around me and the family. So just a big thanks to everybody for the kind notes and my gratitude for your well wishes. And glad to be back, though. Glad to be talking some UCF sports and having a little hijinks, a little fun tonight, too. So looking forward to doing the show.
Yeah. Spring practice continuing this week. We're getting closer, just a week or so away from the spring game. Practice number 9 with a scrimmage this Thursday. We had the open media availability this week. And Leo, you've been at the presser today. Everything is wonderful. This is the greatest team ever. Is that about the summary of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I get about every time I, come out of the media availability. I spoke to Jason afterwards about, how do I keep, my feet on the ground? Because I hear these things coming from the media availability, and I'm like, wow, we actually have an offense that could put up big numbers. But that's what it sounds like, right? Now, we'll see. We'll see what the product is on the field. Not when the spring game comes around, but when the conference actually starts. But yeah, I thought it was good to hear about DeMarcus Bowman about a billion times, and we'll see. We'll see where we go.
Adam, it brings up an interesting point. We've talked about this, and it's a word you used during men's basketball in the NIT, hopium, right?
Yeah.
Do we get caught up in this? Because I've really thought about this. Do we, through this medium and in the interviews and the sound bites that we hear, do we raise expectations? I've been thinking about this since last season, and I'm just going to be a little more tempered. Coach Malzahn, Leo, was a question you asked of him today during the media availability about offensive and defensive lines, and they're real guys there. They're real players. Show me in the fall is where I'm at. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm not getting on the hopium.
Yeah, as far as me, I look at it more as we are communicating what they're telling us. So they're telling us, oh, we're this real, team, and we got some real guys that can make some big plays, right? But like you said, show us in the fall. But the problem is I guess people misconstrued when we put these things out there. We're just communicating what they say. I don't think personally we're guilty of the Suns or whatever media outlet is there representing. I don't think we're guilty of giving the fan base hope. I think it's just we're doing our diligence, putting this info out to the people and keeping them up with what's going on with the football team. But I don't think we sell hope, in my opinion.
Adam, you agree with that? I mean, we've been doing this for a while, and you go back to the previous spring, and and I know it's a little bit of fun. They're going to go 12-0. This is a big hike now going into this Big 12, and I know they believe what they're saying now, but we don't really know.
Yeah, look, no better time of year than spring, right? Every team is raising the trophy in spring, and every fan base across the country falls victim to that. I think UCF not excluded, but Leo hits on something important. Like we're taking information that's given to us. Mike and I talked on the show this week, and we were trying to figure out, like, are we any good? And the reality is, you and Leo see a little bit more than the rest of us, but I think I've seen a collective amount of 26 minutes of UCF football in the last 3 weeks, and it's just the 20-second clips that I see from you and Leo and the rest of the media. So the reality is we don't know, but I think as a fan base, you want to have that hope, right? You want to have the hope that you have players that are there. You want to have the hope that we're going to have a talented roster this year. And you can see reasons why you think you would have that, but none of us know. But that's the fun part of being an idiot fan, right? I mean, fan stands for fanatic, right? So we're all gonna assume we're gonna go 12-0, 15-0 until we hear otherwise. But that's part of the fun of this whole concept, is having the positivity to say, hey, we're going to be a good football team this year. And here's the thing. you can legitimately talk yourself into that position with what UCF's returning, with the weapons we have, with what we've done in some spots. You can talk yourself into us being a solid football team. But once you hike the ball, I mean, everything changes. But I think the hopium is just a function of timing at this point. And I guess in theory, man, if I can do two things, be positive or be negative, I might as well be positive. It costs me the same to be positive and be negative. So I might as well be positive and hope for the best in this one.
Well, let's roll a soundbite from head coach Gus Malzahn. It sets up a question that I have for both of you coming out of it. And he was asked and talked about the running back room.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade our running back room, for any in the country. They're all extremely talented. They're all a little bit different. And I think that is really important. We've had great success in the past, before. And we've had, I think I've had 2 first rounders on the same team before, and 3 guys that played the NFL before. So we're in that same mode as what we've had in the past. But our running backs are very talented.
All right. So my question first to you, Adam, of the position groups on offense, do you feel strongest about the running backs going into this season?
I think that I do. And obviously, the receivers, I think we returned 2 key receivers and Baker and Hudson. I think there's still some competition for 3, 4, and 5. Tight ends, obviously Alec Holler. We're hearing great things about Randy Pittman. Again, before the show, we were talking about the buzz names that you hear in spring. You're hearing some good things about Randy Pittman, but again, true freshman, unknown. Offensive line's got to get rebuilt. In quarterback play, obviously was inconsistent last year. So you got to look at the running back room and returning an RJ Harvey, returning a Johnny Richardson, what we think Jordan McDonald can be. And then Leo touched on it earlier. You can't walk 6 steps on campus without hearing DeMarcus Bowman's name mentioned somewhere. And so I think there's a ton of electricity. We saw him hurdle a human being today on the highlight clips. That's exciting. So I think the running back room by far is the offensive group that, as you asked me today on April 6th, I feel best about.
Same question to you, Leo, and today's availability. A couple of running backs in the room. Do you think going into the season, this is the strongest group on offense?
110%. I think
he's bought into the hopium. He's all bought in.
110.
You know what? I'm guilty of it too. But I just look at Malzahn's track record and what he's done at Auburn as well, and he's had some dogs back there in the backfield. I mean, starting off with Trey Mason, I think people forget about Trey Mason and what he did back in that run with Auburn, and Peyton Barber. Even Cam Martin was with him back at Auburn. I mean, these are some real deal guys that were rushing for our 1,000 yards a season. And when you got guys like RJ Harvey, DeMarcus Bowman, which is something I'm interested to talk about a little bit more, because transferring from Clemson, Florida, it's a little bit of a question mark, but that's a topic for another day. I think Johnny Richardson is a guy that he offers a lot, even with his stature, his weight. I know he might be a little bit undersized, but like I told him earlier, he's a human joystick. He can do a lot back there. Let's see. I mean, McDonald, we saw just a little bit from him last year, and those glimpses were pretty good. I feel good about him going into this season too. So, yes, the running back room is 100%. I think the best core that the football team has in the offensive side.
And not to mention quarterback John Rice Plumlee and what he did on the ground. Of course, we don't know who would be QB1. But this, of course, predicates that the offensive line is going to be strong. And of these groups, Adam, wouldn't the offensive line be the one with the most question marks as a position group going into the season?
I'm going to one-up Leo 115%, Trace, because, again, I know we have 2 returning starters, but there are 3 other positions that have to be filled in. And offensive line is the one – maybe not the one, but a huge portion of a team that has to be cohesive, right? They have to be on the same page. Those 5 very large human beings have to be in lockstep with what they're working on. And that takes some chemistry. That takes some time to build. We saw last year, there are some struggles, early on, and the guys getting on the same page. Now you're going to rotate in 3 new guys. There's going to be position battles. Reps are going to be split. I think the offensive line is certainly going to be an area that will have the biggest question mark going in. Now, let me play the hopium card. We got talent, right? We got, a bunch of guys from the transfer portal. Marcellus Marshall was an All-American in the MAC. Mari Knight coming from Alabama. Obviously, the pedigree is there. So we brought guys in. I know the center, Bullish Schmidt and Drake Metcalf will be kind of figured out at some point. So you have guys that are there, but can all 5 of them come together and do the exact same thing at the exact same time, learn this new offense as well, gel together? That to me is the absolute biggest question mark on the offensive side next to quarterback.
And you mentioned transfer portal. That window is going to open again, and no
We ain't done
doubt
yet.
UCF's
Yeah.
going to lose some guys, and then they're going to bring in some more guys. And I just remember what we heard throughout last year, that with the new parts on the offensive line, new faces, that they needed to come together, that they needed to communicate and learn that. With this much change, doesn't the same thing apply? That it's going to take them a while to gel? I mean, is it reasonable to expect that these new faces, they're all going to be gelled by game one?
Yes. No, I mean, clearly, again, offensive line is the one position where communication is key, right? I mean, understanding what each one's doing. We had Ryan Swoboda, Tracy, and I talked to him about 2 months ago now, and he talked about, he was stepping on, I forget who it was. I think it was Palue. He was stepping on his foot because they were not in sync together on that side of the line. There's so many little things that we don't know about that I think is going to really dictate that. But you're right. I mean, we think we have what we have now. There's another portal window, friends. May 1 to May 15, that thing opens back up, and we saw it last year. It's going to be interesting to figure out how some of this stuff all comes together.
What about you, Leo? Is your concerns on the offensive line or another position group on offense?
On offense, it's tough. Obviously, the quarterback position for me, I would put the quarterback position at number 1 there. But
hasn't this been decided? Whoa, wait. Coach Malzahn seemed to indicate it was an open competition. Does anybody believe that? Do you believe that?
I do, and I don't. I'll tell you why I believe it.
Well, boy, you're not filling the UCF mic slot very well. You're hedging there. Hold that thought. Let's expand on this a little bit more with our first guest of the evening, Chris Boyle, covers UCF for the Daytona Beach News Journal. He's in these media. Where is he tonight? You're not under the sea? Where are you tonight?
I feel like I set the expectation too high the first time I came on the show. Like anytime I'm not under the sea now, it's going to be a disappointment.
We are glad to have you back on Suns Live. We've been talking about strengths of the running backs, a couple of them coming out to the media availability this Thursday. And the question was posed, is this the group that you feel best about on offense? What about you? Is this the group? And on the flip side, how confident are you in the changes that have occurred along the offensive line?
Well, I like the receiver group too. I think you got, Javon Baker, Kobe Hudson, Xavier Townsend's in an expanded role. I think that's a good group to start with, and they added in the portal as well. I think the running backs, considering that there's the most continuity on the roster, there's very little change at that position. They didn't add anyone through the portal or in the recruiting class from the high school or JUCO ranks, so they definitely feel confident about what they have there too, with RJ Harvey, with Johnny Richardson, with Jordan McDonald, with a few other guys, obviously Mark Anthony Richardson and DeMarcus Bowman, who certainly flashed on the scrimmage today by the looks of it. So I'd say that's definitely the two groups you probably feel best about. And yeah, I too have concerns about the offensive line as far as the number of bodies they're having to replace. You don't have a lot of starters back there. Are they going to have Paole stay at right guard? I know they're cross-training him at center, although they've been mostly using Bula Schmidt to this point from what I've seen with the first team unit. But I think overall they'll have, that's certainly the point of emphasis, is getting that offensive line in gear and to do it earlier to get out faster compared to the way they started last year.
Chris, before you came on, we were talking about hope and expectations, and pretty much every offensive player who's come to the microphone has told us this offense looks fantastic. They're pushing the ball down the field. They're electric. They're putting up points. They're putting up plays. Again, that's only what we're being told. What are reasonable expectations you think for this new Darren Hinshaw-led offense? What do you think is reasonable for fans to expect about what this offense may bring to the table?
I think that they're going to take shots. I don't know if they're going to hit on those shots. I think that's definitely the big doubt. Which of these quarterbacks can most consistently hit those deep throws if they want to pop things down the seam or down the sidelines and make it a bit more explosive. I still think that this is going to be an offense that leans heavily on the run. Darren Hinshaw said as much. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be really good at running the ball. That's what they intend, at least. But I do think that it is fair to expect that with players as talented as Baker and that can stretch the field, and we saw a little bit what Hudson could do, like I mentioned, and I think you do have a lot of options in the middle of the field. I think that should be an area where UCF does very well. They've got a lot of different options When you look at Townsend, when you look at Trent Whittemore, who's a much different type of slot receiver at 6'4", 210 pounds. Chauncey Magwood's pretty electric with the ball, and we'll see some of these other guys. I think we almost overlook Amari Johnson too, who had a really good spring last year, and then he of course had that injury that cost him the entire season. So I'd like to see what he looks like at full speed when we get closer to the spring game exhibition too. It's a good group, and overall, that's what I think a realistic expectation, to try to hit those big plays and to find the quarterback that most reliably does it, whether it's John Rice Plumlee, whether it's Timmy McClain, whether it's Thomas Castellanos. That's what they really have to figure out.
Chris, so moving on to the other side of the ball, that what really concerns me personally is the secondary. I don't know if it's the same concern for you, but I felt like we kind of, struggled back there in the second half of the season. We really, they were really passing the ball on us. Corey Thornton only really being the only experienced guy back there, and he didn't get too many reps, in his early years. So what do you think moving forward is the answer to that secondary and avoiding, that we get cooked, again in the conference?
I think the cornerback spots, particularly the boundary corners, is definitely one of the big question marks. I think when it comes to the safety spot, they like what they've brought in from the portal. It sounds like Jairo Wilson and DeJordan Mask have been two of the top performers there. I think Jakari Henderson is a guy that I would expect to see a lot of this year at corner. He played a lot in the Military Bowl. He was one of their top recruits in Gus's first full class. So I think that's a player that will have an opportunity to start by the time the fall comes around. I'd like to see, again, what kind of progress he's made and how much trust they have on him to man an island out there. But yeah, Corey Thornton, I think, is penciled in at one starter for sure. I think the depth there is something to be a little bit shaky on right now, but they did aggressively pursue that position in the portal. And I know that Addison Williams and David Gibbs are going to really teach that position, try to, get the most out of those guys, and they'll put the best five guys on the field. That's something that Addison mentioned on Tuesday, that they're just going to find the best five guys and give them a run. And I think Nakai Martinez plays a big role into that too. I think he's your definite full-time player in that night position, that slot corner hybrid safety. And I think he's in for a big year. I think he's an upgrade athletically on Justin Hodges. And I think he's going to be a player that grows into a very, very good starter for UCF.
One of your recent articles throughout the camp has been position battles. Did you have more offense or defensive position battles in that article?
Well, there were 5 of them, so I'm trying to think now.
That's why I asked that. That's why I quizzed you.
I think I had offense. It's slot receiver, center, right tackle, linebacker, and safety were the 5 that I had.
But not quarterback.
I'm not convinced that there's a quarterback battle yet. I mean, everything we've seen in practice, we've seen John Rice Plumlee run with the ones. Until we start to see definitively in practice, and we might not, honestly. They might hide it to us, but everything we've seen thus far is Plumlee running with the ones. And until that changes, I wouldn't look too heavily into a quarterback battle just yet. Now, if Castellanos or McClain play so well that they have to get in there, or if Plumlee goes the other way and struggles, then sure, at that point, I think you have a battle. But he is the incumbent until otherwise proven.
Which makes next Friday's spring game interesting. They moved the start time for the baseball game up, and they pushed back the start of the spring game. But perhaps he doesn't make it to start the spring game, and it's Castellanos or McClain that go out first.
Right. I like to think that I have a busy schedule, and then I look at John Rice and what he's doing right now, and I have to just tip my cap. The guy's, doing a little bit of everything. That's a lot to ask of a person, of a guy his stature, to be able to go out there and play a doubleheader today after running with the scrimmage. I mean, that's impressive. I know UCF didn't play particularly well in that doubleheader today. Baseball.
I think East Carolina just kicked a field goal, but I need to double check that.
They might have. But yeah, I think the positions that I'm looking at, I kind of touched on a few of them. I think tackle's a really interesting position because Trace, you and I have agreed upon this. I think line play is going to be absolutely crucial this first year in the Big 12. that's where you're going to figure out if this offense could go anywhere. If you can talk about all the explosive skill players and Plumlee and what he can do as a runner, and if he can cut it out as a vertical passer. If they can't block, it doesn't matter. And they've got, Tylen Grable out the entire spring. They expect to get him back in the summer. So this is a real big opportunity for 3 players, in my opinion. Paul Rubelt, who's been lining up at left tackle a lot in these drills. Edward Collins, who's waited his time, just turned 23 today, has been playing well at the right side. And then also Amari Kite, who they brought in from Alabama, who was their backup left tackle last year. As he gets more familiar with the situation, more familiar with the program, I think he's going to have a good chance to push for a job too.
Chris, I'm going to ask a kind of a question in the chat here from Brian. He's talking about Hinshaw, but I'm going to take the other angle. How do you think Gus is adapting to his new CEO role? Do you think he's really kind of hands off, letting Hinshaw run the offense? How do you think the Gus as CEO has gone for the first couple of weeks of spring?
I think Hinshaw does have command, at least right now. I mean, everything we've seen is he's been very hands-on with the quarterbacks as the receivers have run their routes. And Gus has been off on the other field. Gus has watched a lot of practice, a lot of those early individual drills from the other field entirely. So I think he is embracing the CEO role. I think he wants to help the program grow in other places other than just offensively. And I think that that's a good thing for the long-term vision. I think that's something you want. A guy who's been there, who's dealt with the boosters and dealt with the pressure at the highest level and knows what it takes to contend at the very top of the game. I think you want him in more of a off-field role to be able to have that infrastructure in place rather than just, can they run for 250 yards a game or can they convert over 50% on third down, that sort of stuff.
It strikes me as odd, though, I got to tell you, to watch him wander from position group to position group. I was standing about 3 feet.
It's an adjustment for sure, yeah. I'm sure for him it is too.
As he's watching the offensive line and Herb Hand bark instructions to players, and he's standing right there and he's watching. Then he wanders over by Addison Williams. It still seems strange to me that he's not in the mix with the quarterbacks.
And I wonder, as the games get closer, if you start to see him more creep into particular spots. But right now, like I said, he is doing as he said he would. He is giving Hinshaw more of the direct control of the quarterback group and of the offense on the whole.
So the question I have for the quarterback competition is, last year we saw Mikey Keene and JRP go down to the wire. I mean, it was mentioned that JRP was going to be starter maybe a week before the South Carolina State game.
Yeah.
So, he kept the JRP. He suffered some injuries, and he was forced to put Mikey Keene in some games. Obviously, the Cincinnati game was huge. Mikey Keene came through. A lot of fans might have doubts that we might have not won that game if Mikey Keene hadn't gone in. But if JRP slips during the season, has an injury or something like that, do you think that Gus will learn from last season and have the guts? Okay, maybe I should put that QB2 in to see what he's got earlier rather than later.
Is that Gus's decision or is that Darren Hinshaw's
decision? So it's exactly. That's a two-part question. Whether it's going to be under Hinshaw's recommendation or whether Gus overrules anything. But absolutely, I think you give Plumlee, if Plumlee wins the job in camp, I think this is going to be a much more, I'm trying to think of the right word here, a much shorter leash for sure. I think Plumlee has to play well. Otherwise, they've got to give other guys looks. McLean is a proven Division I starter. He played almost 10 games for USF, so he has experience and played in some tough environments. Castellanos played in the American Athletic Championship game, albeit not very well, not for a particularly long time, but he got his feet wet last year. If Plumlee's not the future, this is his last year of eligibility. If you can tell right away that he's not cut out for Big 12 ball, you got to get somebody on the field that you think can be the guy the rest of the year and potentially into 2024.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks, we talked about this the other day. Someone that you know and you have covered, quarterback Riley Trujillo. Is he perhaps the answer down the line for UCF? They seem to like him.
I like the fit. I really do. I thought Duke was a school that when they recruited him, I thought made a lot of sense considering what their quarterback play looks like, and he looked very similar to Riley Leonard in terms of a pure body type. And then they also had Eric Weatherly go to Duke from the same school, Bartram Trail. But as far as what he brings to the UCF room, he brings size. He'd be the biggest guy in that room right now. He's 6'3", going on 6'4", 210 pounds. He is a runner. He ran for over 700 yards last year as a junior, threw for 1,900 yards, was the MVP of the National Combine in San Antonio, according to 24/7 Sports, showed an ability to throw it at all three levels. I think he's a really underrated prospect. I think he really got better as the year wore on and has only improved his stock with the camps since January. So I think he's a player that is ascending, and UCF's done well to beat quite a number of Power 5 teams to the punch here. He had a lot of offers in the ACC, not so much maybe in the SEC, but certainly there were a lot of schools in that ACC borderline Big 12 range that were looking heavily at Trujillo. And I think they found a good player to build that 2024 class around.
All right, Chris, 8 days from today, UCF spring game. What are 2 or 3 things that you want to have answered at the spring game? What are some things you want to see that you're really curious to kind of get some, as Gus would say, some information about at the spring game?
Yeah, I think that offensive line play is going to be part of it. And I want to see what if they go with a consistent grouping or if they rotate, if they want to go with, say, the 5 ones we've seen. Like I mentioned, to this point, it's been Rubelt, Paole, Schmidt, Collins, and the left guard's been Marcellus Mitchell, if I'm not mistaken. So if they keep those guys together and try to build that continuity, or if they try to mix and match and give other guys opportunities to run with certain players, I think that's for one thing for sure. Definitely the quarterbacks and a couple of the players that transferred in late last year. This is really their first opportunity in front of live audience between DeMarcus Bowman and Timmy McLean. I think those are 2 players that a lot of fans got excited about when they committed and when they transferred to UCF. This will be their first opportunity to really see them in any sort of meaningful competition. So I think those guys, what kind of roles and what kind of ceiling they could have would be something I'd be looking for. And then the linebacking partner for Jason Johnson. He's the one player we know for sure is going to start, provided he's healthy. But by the time we get to August, but Cam Moore and Walter Yates, I think is a very good competition. 2 players that I think kind of do different things. I think Yates really popped at times last year and has a little bit more college experience, but Cam Moore is a very, very smart player, and I think a player that will get on the field and play a lot this year too.
And a quick one, outside of John Walker, because we obviously see a lot of it, he's a highly touted recruit. Outside of him, what recruit or what newcomer do you think is going to be outstanding in the spring game or even the upcoming season?
Are you talking about the true freshman?
Yeah,
or?
true freshman. Yeah.
Okay, because I want to separate those from the portal.
Yeah, if you want, you can do true freshman.
Braden Marshall stands out for sure. I mean, he's going to have a chance to run with the second unit. It sounds like. I mean, I know his name's been brought up a couple times by Addison Williams. He fits very much behind Nakai Martinez, and they could use him in safety at nickel. Potentially a little bit on the boundary. So I think he's one guy that's going to make an immediate impact. And then maybe in a longer term sense, I think Randy Pittman is a really exciting prospect at tight end. Alec Holler is going into his final year of eligibility. If I'm not mistaken, Zach Marsh-Wojan, I believe, is going into his last year as well. So that's a position that down the road is going to be wide open. And between Pittman and Grant Stevens, those 2 guys are very different in terms of build and what their strengths are. Stevens is more of a seam splitter, whereas Pittman is a true H-back. He's a guy that ran the ball a bunch in short yardage situation for Mosley High. So I think he's another player that I'd like to see as the year goes on, potentially get more involved.
Remind folks where they can find your coverage and anything that you'll have coming out soon.
Yeah, so news-journalonline.com is the best place to find us. My Twitter account is, as you see below, at Chris Boyle DBNJ. We'll be there for the spring game on Friday. I've been coming to as many of the availabilities as I can, juggling quite a number of responsibilities, including Daytona Tortugas action, which begins tomorrow night. A little minor league baseball plug. But yeah, as we'll have an advance to go into it, some of those storylines we just kind of talked about, and then a recap afterwards and the bigger picture. I think another thing that's important to keep in mind with the fallout of the spring game is recruiting. This is a big recruiting period last year. There were a lot of commits right around Easter for UCF in that 2023 class. And so I think that to be on the lookout for maybe a couple of booms here in the near future too.
All right. Chris Boyle, Daytona Beach News Journal. We appreciate you being with us on Suns Live. Back to the sea next time, okay? Come on.
I'll try to coordinate it with the wife and the kids to make sure I'm back under the sea.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
We talking to quarterbacks there. UCF's quarterback, John Rice Plumlee, out at practice today, hopped a plane, and then went up to ECU. Of course, things didn't go well for the Knights. Let's talk a little baseball now. Consider this a de facto post-game show with our man Steven Branca, who is part of the ESPN Plus crew. Steven, before we get into this debacle of a doubleheader today, a little fun to begin with. Coach Malzahn was asked about this today. Adam has a soundbite from Coach talking about JRP's dad.
Yeah, he's on his way right now. He's planning on playing baseball too, and he was part of the scrimmage.
Was there a limit in how many snaps he played, or how much he played?
We had a plan, and I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 series and all that. And I think he's going to play a doubleheader. I don't know if anybody's ever done that, so it'll be interesting to see. But the thing about him, he hasn't missed any practices. And he's really done a solid job, and not just offensively, but leading and all that. And the fact that he can go play at a high level of baseball, it says a lot about him.
He certainly had an interesting day, and the Knights giving up, 28 runs over the course of this doubleheader, including being run ruled in game 1, certainly does not rest on John Rice Plumlee's shoulders. What is going on here? You cover the team, you're part of the broadcast. We had high hopes going into that South Florida weekend, and things did not go well from day one.
Yeah, it's a really good question. If I knew the answer to it, it'd probably be fixed by now. It's just it's weird right now. There's a lot of big innings that they're giving up. The one thing you have seen, at least today, you saw there was no lack of fight. I mean, the offense kept coming back, trying to get them back in the ball game. It's just really hard when you're down early, as big as they have been recently. So eliminating the big inning is a big issue right now. Just putting out fires, and I don't know if that comes from pitch calling, defense, where it's at this point, but it's definitely a culmination of things. And if I knew the answer, I guarantee it'd be fixed at this point, because I got a lifeline straight into that dugout. So, I don't know.
Well, let me follow up. Rudy Gomez, who's been great on Fridays, got roughed up today, perhaps hung out there a little bit too long. They seem to have been thrown off by Ben Vespi not being a part of the weekend rotation with injury, and they haven't seemed to regain their footing. And Jacob Marlowe didn't have a good outing, and then they go for perhaps saving the series with a noon start on Friday. Can this starting pitching turn around? I mean, do you see things to be hopeful about?
Yeah. I mean, Rudy Gomez has been fantastic all year. Even his last outing where he got the loss, he was great. Today, really, if you go back and watch that game, the 4-run inning that he had to start giving up runs was bases loaded and 2 outs. And for some reason, the corner infielders were in, and it was a chopper that was hit over the first baseman's head that ended up scoring 3 runs. Now, if they're playing infield back in that situation, which with 2 outs, you should be, that's an easy ground ball to first base. You're out of the inning. You don't know what kind of momentum happens from there. And so there's just little issues here and there. But yes, so you had Vespi with the injury, and then you had Cam Leiter, who you thought was going to step in and be a freshman stud right out the gate, and he's had his struggles. It's just a couple of things like that. All it takes is 2 guys that you thought you could mix into the starting rotation, that all of a sudden injury, just lack of chemistry right now, or whatever it happens to be, it's kind of set them back, just like you said. But once those guys get clicking, if they can get clicking at the right time, which hopefully would be soon, things could turn around for sure.
Steven, over the weekend, particularly against the Cows, the offense, which has been carrying the team for a long time, seemed to really kind of quiet a little bit. The bats cooled a little bit over the weekend. What are you seeing at the plate at this point? Obviously, UCF was putting up a ton of runs early on, seems to have slowed down of late. What are you seeing in terms of their approach at the plate and what may be causing this offense to stagnate a little bit?
Yeah, approach is a big deal. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I actually had a lot of fun watching the ECU hitters today because they competed. They compete every at bat. It doesn't matter what it is. They're trying to put a ball in play, put pressure on the defense, finding barrels, finding gaps, laying bunts down, just flipping balls over the infielders' heads, whatever they had to do. And so hopefully UCF learns a little something from that. We got to do what we got to do. We got to fight. We got to compete. But also I have to, as much as I hate doing this, you got to hand it to South Florida. Their pitchers pitched backwards. They were going off-speed stuff early, fastballs mixing late in the count. And so it's been tough for them to face some guys that kind of mix it up on them like they did. And so they hadn't really seen that yet. They were seeing typical pitching where you get fastballs early in the count, off-speed stuff later in the count to try to put you away. And so they got pitched backwards, and got to hand it to those pitchers. The guy on Saturday, I think he only had one strikeout, but he pitched 7 shutout innings or something like that. It was crazy. And so it wasn't like he was dominant. He just did enough to keep him off balance. And that's, if you could do that at the college level on the mound, you can do some things.
Outside of Siena and Dartmouth, our bats haven't really been, the most electrifying. And I see our hitters at one point, we had 6 hitters above 300. And we're just kind of slowly seeing the average just kind of drop. I asked BJ Taylor this about basketball and how the psyche kind of works. You saw USF go out there. They were one of the worst teams in earn run average. And then you come out to Miami, and the guy that they put out on the mound was awful. I saw his stats, but these stats can tell you different stories, right? But what is it really that happens like in the psyche of players? Do they actually take it light when it's like, oh, well, I think I can get a good day. I can have a good day off of this pitcher. And, and then it turns out that pitcher is coming with some nasty stuff and they don't have it.
This is also another combination question. And so there's one thing where hitting's contagious. And so that's what you saw early on. One guy gets a hit, next guy's excited. He gets up, he gets a hit. We call it passing the baton, right? You're just trying to pass the baton to the next guy. And that's what you saw early on. And now you're seeing guys start to scuffle, and it's contagious. It's going down to the next guy, and they're scuffling. And, if you're a leadoff guy and you're having a good at bat, you could pass on information to that next hitter, right? Hey, this is what worked. This is what I had success with. This is what I saw. If you're not seeing it well early on, then you can't pass that information on to guys. It doesn't help them out in the end, right? And so it's one of those things where it's kind of like a domino effect. And so early on, these guys, especially in the top of the order, you're starting to see their average drop a little bit. They're not seeing the ball as well right now. It's just flattening out. Okay. It's not, they were hot as fire early on. The game will humble you pretty quick. It's just flattening out a little bit right now. And that's just where they're at, I think. And so it's more of a, this is what baseball looks like type of thing. Nobody really hits 400 these days unless you're an absolute stud. And so, but I think that's where we're at. We still got a few guys at 300. We got some guys that, we got good power numbers. It's just, to be honest, this week we're facing ECU's a top 10 team easy. Right. If they would have they played 2 close games against Houston that they lost. If they won those 2 games, they're a top 5 team this week instead of moving down to 12 from 8. And so it's just, they're a really good team. They are so good, especially watching them today. There's a reason why they're at the top of the AAC every year so far. They're well coached. They got great players, and they put it all together on the field.
42 runs they've given up over the last 3 games, Miami Tuesday and the doubleheader today. It hasn't happened yet with Coach Greg Lovelady, but I remember back to conversation with men's basketball head coach Johnny Dawkins, where it seemed like after every game losses, he would say, our best ball is still ahead of us. And at one point I said, we were running out of games for that. Do Do you see their best ball for this baseball team still ahead of them? I don't want to put one foot in the grave here. I mean, they're 1-4 now in league play after this doubleheader loss, 17-14 overall. Do you see their best play? I mean, can they build into a conference tournament? It's really not that far away now.
Yeah, they absolutely can. I mean, we've seen them do it in the past. I mean, that 2021 year where they were just a few pitches away from winning a conference tournament. That was a year that they were basically a 500 team. And so, yeah, I definitely could see that. And especially now that you're getting ECU out of the way early on, the competition isn't nearly as good. It's, it is very possible. And once you get healthy, if you can get healthy on the mound, I'm going to say once you get healthy on the mound, things can get going in the right direction and they could get things figured out. It's definitely possible. They have the talent. They have the ability to do it. It just has to be done at this point. So.
All right, Stephen, this week's off the rails question for you here. Today, opening round of the Masters, which for a lot of people is a really big bucket list sports item. Do you have a bucket list sports event or sports item that you'd love to be a part of that's on your list that you want to get to one day?
Well, I'm hoping to go to the Masters within the next few years. So my brother, so his father-in-law, I don't know what company he works for, but he has I don't know what kind of legacy tickets or whatever it is. They had tickets last year, this year, and for years to come. So my brothers actually went last year. Now it's hard for me because I work at a church. So, if it's around Easter like this, there's no chance I could go, but I do have plans to go in the future. And a little sidebar, I actually played in Augusta, Georgia, my second year with the Giants when I was in low A in the South Atlantic League. So you could drive by that place. You wouldn't even know it was there. They sent us out on a 10-game road trip to get us away from the tournament when it came to town. So that was, got to miss out on that. But yeah, I think Masters is a really good one. I think it's Stanley Cup finals. I think Stanley Cup games are amazing. I think the energy in those, I got a chance to go to a second round playoff game in Madison Square Garden where the Rangers moved on to the next round. And that was pretty intense. So I think the energy in those games is something that I'd like to experience.
If you can't use those Masters tickets, there's 3 people in these boxes that probably go for you if you could,
We can report back to you. Do you have a favorite right now? Three-way tie for the lead, Rahm, Hovland, and Brooks Koepka. Do you have a favorite? Who's going to win the Masters, Stephen?
I mean, Rahm is playing some really good golf these days. That's probably the easiest one to pick out of all of them. I think Rahm is, his game right now is head and shoulders above the rest recently. So I mean, him and Scotty Scheffler both have been the most consistent over the last couple of years. They've been a lot of fun to watch. I got a chance to go out to the Arnold Palmer and see both of those guys, and man, it's impressive what those guys could do out there.
All right, Stephen, I got to do it. I got to do the hard-hitting question. You don't have to answer, but obviously there's been some rumors about the baseball team and, with an ex-player, sending out emails and whatnot. There's no concrete evidence. I can't confirm any of these rumors. But if you want to answer this part, where do you draw the line when it comes to cheating, I guess, in baseball? Because a lot of fans might have this misconception that even, stealing signs, but let's say the pitcher's tipping their pitches, like stuff like that, where exactly do you draw the line, and what advice could you give the team to, hey, maybe start doing this and see what happens,
Drawing the line, I mean, I think is there's cheating and there's taking what your opponent gives you, right? And so if a coach is over in the dugout and he's dumb enough to do touches to the hat for his signs for pitches, and the players pick up on that, or coaches pick up on that, and they relay signs, that's part of the game. But if a pitcher is out there tipping pitches, that's on him. Now, if you're using a camera in center field and you're hitting a trash can, I mean, that's an issue, right? And so I think there's a line, and you just don't cross it. I mean, and if you do, I think baseball takes care of itself in the end. It's one of those games that if you don't honor it and play it the way it's supposed to be played, it comes back and bites you. And so, I mean, it's there's ways to get advantages. and all the teams do it. And then there's ways to break the rules. And, if you get caught, you're screwed. If you don't, nobody likes you anyway. So, it's just the way it goes. But, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
As for the emails and rumors and everything else, I only really comment on if Coach Lovelady says something or one of the current players says something, then we'll talk about it. But outside of that, I don't buy into other people's talk and stuff that goes around. So
Let's end with this, perhaps softball question over the plate. What do they have to do Friday to get out of Greenville with a win in this series?
you're talking about the baseball series, not like
Baseball
rock,
series.
paper, scissors or anything
Yeah,
like that.
baseball.
They got to score more runs than ECU does.
All right, I know that one. But can they limit the Pirates here? Can they?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And honestly, I mean, Dom Stagliano is one of the best in the country, I do believe, when he is on. And so he has a good chance. If he could pound his zone, if he's got his changeup working, if he's able to mix pitches, he can keep those hitters off balance. Especially because they got some left-handed hitters that can really hit. The changeup would be kind of a neutralizer for him. So if he could keep those hitters off balance, and the hitters could get going early instead of late in the game trying to come from behind all the time, yeah, they definitely can leave there with a win. And I think it's definitely doable because right now, I mean, ECU is still announcing a starter for tomorrow. Last I had checked, I don't know if they had announced it yet, but as of this morning, they were still announcing somebody, which means they don't feel real comfortable with who they got in the 3 spot for them on the mound. So I'm hoping that's an advantage for the Knights, and we'll see how that goes.
Any chance on the night of the spring game, with the baseball game moved up, that when John Rice Plumlee runs from center field over to the football stadium, you could run from the broadcast booth and head over there and do dual coverage?
I'll gladly do dual coverage. I don't know if they'll pay me for it. I mean, but I'll see if Mark wants me on the radio broadcast with him or not. But I'll pick up John Rice, put him on my shoulder and run him over there so he doesn't have to exert his legs too much to get over there. He's probably he probably already has a golf cart waiting down in the right field gate for him that he's going to just ride right over there or something. I mean, the guy took a private jet out of town to get to the baseball game today. I mean, let's be serious. He's got more connects than all of us at this point.
You don't get to road games like that now?
I ain't going to road games. They don't pay me enough to go to road games.
But
no matter
how much on the jet fuel budget?
Can John Rice get Masters tickets? That's the question, Steven. Can John Rice get into the Masters?
What's crazy is I was talking to my boss today who used to work at a church in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was like, I used to have tickets to Augusta like every year and never went. And I was like, I literally, that's like the biggest slap in the face I think I've ever heard in my life, that you're right there. You had tickets and you did not go. And so look, the tickets are there. We just have to find them, boys. All right. We got to find them. We'll get a pep talk going. Scavenger hunt. All right. We'll figure it out. We're going to go.
All right, Stephen, thanks for being part of Suns Live's post-game doubleheader coverage. It all timed out so well for us tonight.
Yeah, it works, right? I mean, it didn't go the way we wanted, but it works. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, baseball got another shot Friday at noon against ECU, then Tuesday at Stetson over in DeLand, 6:30 first pitch, and then they welcome in Memphis the following weekend. Tale of two teams. Softball's turned it around. They get the midweek win 7-2 at Florida Gulf Coast. Our man, the voice of the UCF Knights broadcast, Eric Lopez, again files this report for us on the Knights.
Well, guys, the Knights have now won 5 in a row following a 7-2 victory over Florida Gulf Coast in Fort Myers on Wednesday to improve their record to 24-18. Heading into their bye weekend here in the American. They will not play until Tuesday at home against FIU. What's been the key during this 5-game win streak? Pitching. The UCF has only given up 6 runs during this 5-game win streak, led by Grace Jewell, who was named the American Conference Pitcher of the Week on Monday. She's only given up 1 earned run in her last 4 appearances, and she picked up the win on Wednesday. Jewell and Sarah Willis seem to have quietly now raising their level and have established themselves at the top of this rotation for UCF going forward. Offensively, the Knights have also picked it up, led by Shannon Doherty, who was honored on Wednesday with one of the great honors for a UCF student. She was awarded the Order of Pegasus. She celebrated that with a home run in the victory against Florida Gulf Coast, her 25th of her career, becoming the fourth Knight to hit 25 home runs or more in a career, joining Stephanie Best, UCF Athletic Hall of Famer, Janae Shinhoster, and Jada Cody. Jada Cody hit her 30th career home run over the weekend in Greenville as part of the Knights sweep over East Carolina. She's at 30 home runs, only one of 3 UCF players to ever hit 30 or more career home runs in UCF softball history. Things are looking up for the Knights, 24-18 with an RPI of 35 as of Monday, 7 top 50 wins. Those are all impressive resume for the NCAA tournament. The Knights have the 19th strongest, toughest schedule in the country, but they won't be able to add too much to that moving forward. So still a lot of work to do with not much room for error. I figure the Knights need to get about 33, 34 wins to feel good about an at-large lock. That's a long ways to go, one step at a time. Knights will return to the field Tuesday at home, take on FIU before heading back on the road for their final trip ever next weekend against Tulsa. Back to you guys.
All right, so late in the day, Elo said, I forgot to include the latest NCAA projections. And I said, it's too soon for that. And he said, you talk bowl projections year round.
Mm-hmm. Got a point.
Fair. So Elo shares extra innings and D1 softball. Both have UCF as a 3 seed in Tallahassee, perhaps playing the Florida Gators, who might not host for the first time since 2004. I still think it's too early, but I get his point. Very fair. And we included it for you, Elo. He mentioned Shannon Doherty, Order of Pegasus, joined by track and field standout Renaya Jones. Prestigious award, academic award. Congratulations to both of them. They are outstanding representatives for UCF. All right, hot take time to wind down the show. What do we got, Adam?
We're still doing these, huh? All right, here we go. All right, I don't
You
have
want
any
me to
music this
abandon
time.
this? Is this?
No, I just never. Here's the thing.
By the way, Brian did not comment that I announced the return of the questions on April 1st.
I was confused. So I was not following social media closely. I saw that out there and I'm like, oh, we went back to questions. And then this week it was hot takes and I was confused and I didn't know what was going on, but I hardly know what's going on. So let's get into the hot takes. Here we go. This is UCF. UCF not creating any urgency to raise funds for the football complex improvements. All he's seen is some renderings in a video. Hasn't seen a single call to action. This sounds like more like a fact than a take, Trace. But let me start with you. Is this a good hot take? Do you agree with UCF?
I definitely agree. Let's go back in that week. The announcement came early in the week of Mission Control and Kingdom NIL coming together. The announcement, SJ Tui would be making the move over from football to that. And then in the midst of that, then the pre-taped Terry Mahajer video with, again, some new renderings, but no media availabilities for any of this, where they could have worked the media for free media coverage. And what's the call to action? What's the plan? There's a Kingdom NIL event going on as we speak inside the stadium. And, there's a lot of energy around that, but it's, if the money is starting to flow to that, right? And you understand the importance of retaining players. What's Terry Mahajer's marketing plan to bring in dollars on his side of the aisle? What's the call to action? I think Hugh hits it perfectly. And I said to Leo at a baseball game, I know a lot of this is new to Leo covering the Knights. I said, mark down the date for the Terry Mahajer video and renderings, and let's see where we are next year at this time with a new video and new renderings. What's the plan? We've been talking, I don't think Leo knew this. I was at Danny White's groundbreaking with the Steel Drum Band and the White Sand for the Lazy River. There's still, you can still see out in that field some of that white sand that's blended in now with the grass. That was what, 17, 18? It's in the rearview mirror. I agree with you.
So much for quick takes. Leo, do you have an opinion on this
Leo,
take?
you get 5 seconds because I switched roles with you this week.
Reminder to self, it's a quick take. No, this is definitely a hot take. And but I will play a little bit of a devil's advocate here because we see how UCF is very secretive. You mentioned about media not being able to go to these things. What if there is a call to action, and we don't know. It's behind the scenes, but that's just me playing devil's advocate. This is absolutely a hot take. This is exactly what's going on.
They need more than the behind the scenes dollars in order to get where they
Right.
want to be.
Correct. So
always helps. All right, Alex Bitter 11. Timo is going to be on the AD hot seat within 3 years. Leo, I'll let you take this one first.
I'm guilty of thinking this. So yes, it's a good take. It's a good take. So I also think the same way. I think Timo, he needs to ramp it up a bit. 3 years is good because in 3 years he'll be on 5 years, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
I was told there'd be no math. Trace, good take or bad take?
He's on the hot seat now. Next.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
It's
He doesn't get 3 years. Look, I think it's no secret that these next 18 to 24 months are the most crucial in terms of UCF athletics, right? How we transition to the Big 12, how we kind of keep up with the Joneses. We can easily get left behind, or we can make our mark here. I'm not saying that's a hot seat situation, but it's definitely some pressure. Was the pressure cooker back? I think the pressure cooker maybe needs to be delivered to Timo's office.
Yeah.
Brian W. Peterson, I had to edit this for length. I only get 200 characters. Brian says football is the only sport that matters right now. It's what got us to the Big 12. It's what feeds the other sports. Title IX be damned. We should drop all the other sports and put all of our energies into football. Trace, I can tell by the look on your face, you're not going to agree with this one, but I'll ask you anyway.
No, well, obviously you can't do the latter, but he's 100% right on the former. He's right on the former. Football is all that matters, and it's got to get right, and it's got to be right. And they've got to, you said 18 months. They've got to make this transition into the Big 12. It is the train that drives everything else at UCF.
Trace channeling his inner UCF Mike. Leo, where are you?
For me, this is the best take on the whole show.
Well, let's bring it down a notch.
We haven't.
Oh, you're sucking up to Brian now too?
But you know what? I'll tell you what. We haven't gone to future takes, but this one will be the best take on the show because
future takes. He's debuted a new segment.
if Timo knows what's good, he will put all his money where it's supposed to go, and that is the football program.
He knows what's good for him.
If he knows what's good.
I don't know. Well, Leo, this next take may challenge that. Laird WD2 #, fire Dawkins #, fire love lady. Leo.
Man, this put me on the spot. It's a good take.
That's why we do this.
It's a good take.
Oh, wow.
It's a good take.
Okay.
It's a good take.
For both?
Yeah, for both. One thing I have to say this is because I like them both as people. Like, they're great people. Being able to communicate with them, speak with them, they're awesome people. But when it comes to the success of the program, it's just they're not going to cut it. So leave it at that.
Trace.
Definitely no on Fire Dawkins and too soon.
Ooh.
I don't have a sounder for too soon, Trace. I'm going to need you to get an answer next time here. At our favorite person, JP Gilbert, we'd get better ROI if we focused on women's basketball over men's basketball. Leo, you and I can just sit this one out, I think. Trace, go ahead. Take this one.
No, absolutely not. It's an inflated attendance number. Absolutely not. There is no energy around this. Coach Abe led this team to the greatest heights that it's been, and it didn't move the needle. No, and no. He got caught up in Iowa and LSU basketball in the championship game. No. Quick basketball note. We didn't talk about this. John Rothstein saying home and home, Miami, UCF, and men's basketball. And this Big East, Big 12 challenge. It's interesting that we get used to that term, Big 12 now. 3 schools left out of that with 11 Big East schools. Houston's included, but not BYU, Cincinnati, and UCF. So they're not part of that Big East, Big 12 challenge next year. Absolutely not. I think JP Gilbert is fraudulent on this women's basketball stuff. I've invited him on to break down women's basketball, and he keeps ducking it. We
just love it. We all just love each other. All right, Leo, let's start with you in this last one. Rejoice Knights, the first Big 12 championship UCF wins will be by a women's sports team. She maybe says the track team. Is that a good take or a bad take?
No, this is a great take. And track being one of those, that's not far fetched. So
we're a track school now.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Trace, agree, disagree? Where are you at here?
Agreed. I think they have the best chance of the women's sports, and I don't know which men's sport is going to do it. Yeah, definitely. We're a track school now, top 10 ranked in the country.
Wow. That's an unceremonious end to hot takes. You guys agreed with everything. Leo, Trace, the audience not happy with you. Too many dings, according to Mario. We need to get some stuff together here. Jan doesn't want to fire anybody anymore.
Can't we all just get along? Fire up
Michael
the bots.
We're a mascot school. In the circle, all the money goes to football already. A lot of commentary here on the hot takes. Dolly wants to watch some golf. I hear you.
Can we tease anything about next Thursday, Adam? What could we say anything? I'll leave it to you. Could we say anything about what we might do next Thursday?
We're going to have to now because you just brought it up. Well, there's a couple. So we got 2 things we're working on for next Tuesday. Both of them would be really cool. Both are things that the Suns have never been a part of before or done before. So 2 groundbreaking items for the Suns UCF. I have no clue if we're going to pull either of them off, but we're going to try really, really, really hard to do so. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would suggest you do that now because there may be some stuff popping on there that you're going to want to see. And then if you're around the area next Thursday, 8:00, just keep an eye on some stuff, maybe some announcements, maybe some stuff going on. So it's about all the teasing I can do, Trey.
When do you think we could announce that? The latter part of that. How do you see that?
There's a lot of logististics to work out. Usually we do this off air, but we'll talk as a group here. There's a lot of logistics to work out in terms of the second item. There's a risk reward ratio here that we have to kind of weigh. Next week's live show could just feel a little different, i.e. nothing. So prepare for all options available. I think we should try it though. It should be a lot of fun. And I think we can probably scratch it out a little bit, but the normal polished show you're used to, this highly produced program you're used to may just look a little different next week. That's all.
I like it. There's a plan A and a plan B.
Well, hold on. We're going up against Taylor Swift here. I forgot about this too. So,
Goodness.
I don't know if
She's not in Orlando, is she?
She's in Orlando's other hometown team. She's in Tampa, I believe.
Isn't that where Mike's going? But I thought that was Friday. I thought he was missing the spring game.
Mike, for reasons known only to Mike, he's not only not going to Taylor Swift, he's also not going to the spring game. But his entire family is going to Taylor Swift. So, it's a whole thing. You can, I don't know.
Gotcha. All right, Leo, Adam, it has been fun. We pulled off Wi-Fi from the basement here in Parker, Colorado, which I was nervous about. Good. Leo, thank you for pinch hitting for me during these media availabilities. It's been great, and you've been asking a lot of good questions of the coaches. So thank you for that. And it was good to have Chris with us. Just a wealth of knowledge and good insights. Follow him. It's good to have him on the UCF beat. And of course, Stephen, for helping us get through baseball season, which has been a little rocky late, and Elo as well for the softball update. All right, stay tuned to social media and see what we have planned for next week. Live show. We'll be live in some form or fashion somewhere, somehow. That's the goal. So for Adam and UCF Mike not here and Leo, we thank you for being with us. I'm Trace Rolko. Go Knights!
Charge on.
My name is Shannon Doherty, and thanks for watching the Sons of UCF.